evening, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show in which every show is an essay, but today's essay is about essays. We shall essay the essay. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dog Cat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Thursday. To terrific Thursday, is it? I don't know. I mean, it wasn't a bad Thursday. I had a good Thursday. And holy cats, guys. Okay, before I really begin, first and foremost, thank you, Keeverdam, not only for, just being you and your, the years now that you've been a member of the audience, moderator here and on the Discord, and but holy cow, that is ridiculously generous of you. I honestly do not know what to say. Oftentimes I don't, but I just say thank you so much for your generosity, and thank you so much for supporting the channel, and all the channels, all the Lords of the Night crew for so many years now. I really, really, really do appreciate it. Hope your work night is relatively easy, and also can't forget Derek LaRue. Derek, again, thank you so much. I'll just repeat myself. I don't have the words to express how much I appreciate your generosity and support. And all of you collectively, of course, but man, you guys blow me away. You blow me away. I don't know what to say. I hope I live up to your generosity. So before I get into anything else, Noah Asensio, hello. Brittany Holland, hello. Mr. E, hello. Shortline 890, 891, 819. Hello. Keeverdam, of course, hello. Derek LaRue, of course, hello. The Magister, hello. Advocatus Diaboli, hello. Somnamnul Nation, hello. Tony Giff, hello. Miranda Stone, hello. Shell D, hello. Who else is here? Boy, Blakester, hello. Pissed Off Shih Tzu, hello. Resolute Germ, hello. Jonathan Peterson, hello. The Original Shroom, hello. Super Koopa TV, hello. Ostzan, hello. Roger Reynolds, hello. Jose Chacon, hello. You like when I say Chacon with a little like a oomph to it? I like it. I like it. Lurking Gopher, hello. Robert Pincus, hello. Spittlebuggies, hello. Simon Willikins, hello. And if I missed you, I hope I didn't. If you're lurking, if you're in the future. Oh, Beachy Cogito. Hello, Beachy. Hope you're doing well. I don't think I've said your name in quite a while, so it's been a bit. But yeah, if I missed you, if you're lurking, if you're in the future, hello. Now that I've done that, and before I get to anything else, okay. First off, as a sort of legal note, this is not a sponsored show. I have received no funds for the promotion I am about to play for you. I am simply showing off my friend Satsu's business, and that I think you should take a look if you have the interest in what he has to sell. So with that, here is an advertisement. This is my friend Satsu, aka Chef Tyrone, founder, owner, and CEO of Oshi Fried Chicken LLC, featuring a new line of seasoned flour mixes. Chef Tyrone's seasoned blends are the perfect gateway to delicious fried chicken or any other protein you might want to use them on. These recipes were painstakingly tested in Tyrone's home kitchen to bring you the fantastic flavors that you and your family can enjoy. The current flavor lineup includes original, spicy, and lemon garlic herb. You can buy individual packs of your favorite flavors or save some money by ordering a variety bundle all through the online store. Go to www.oishifc.com and order today. Yeah, so there's my inaugural attempt at actually creating an advertisement using some B-roll footage from Satsu's YouTube channel and my own voiceover, and some, as I'm told, royalty copyright-free music that comes straight from YouTube's audio library, so there's absolutely no issues. For future reference, in case anybody ends up watching this, I was a little sketchy. I'm always sketchy about using music from YouTube's audio library because I've been dinged by that before, but fingers crossed. Anyway, yes, take a look at Satsu's business if you have the opportunity, and appreciate it either way. With that, holy cats, I got such an opening now. Where are we going? Well, for those of you that were here last week, you might remember that our speaker at the last TED Excellence mentioned diversity statements when it came to him, in his case, applying for a job at a university. Well, diversity statements are something that are now sort of part and parcel with just simply applying to a college. And what is a diversity statement? As far as I understand it from a previous stream and previous show, it's basically in addition to your cover letter of I'm a student of X and I took these courses and here's my GPA. It's a statement regarding your background, your ethnicity, your struggles as a result of your background, ethnicity, makeup, gender, whatever. But now a new term has come to the fore, one that I'm not familiar with. Maybe it's exactly like a diversity statement. Maybe it's an offshoot of it. I'm not quite sure, but it's apparently called the trauma essay, and that's trauma with a T. So two questions I have as we go into this. First and foremost, what exactly is a trauma essay? Maybe I have three questions. First, what is it? How does it compare to a diversity statement? And three, given the fact that the name itself sounds a little bit hyperbolic, I'm curious to find out if our speaker is doing her presentation in favor of these or discouraging against these things. Those are my three questions, my three primary questions. But also, as always, how much of a good essay is the presentation itself? I guess we'll find out together. So first off, the bingo card for tonight is bingo card C. C is in cookie. That's good enough for me. I think somebody else made that joke in the chat earlier. And as well, if you'll take a look at the top of the chat box, speaking of generosity and Keeverdam combined, there are the links to the fundraisers for our friends Moonshock, Angry Illinoisian, and Tracy, who is a friend of Twisted Skipster. Tracy is a new addition to the fundraiser list. Her family is having a very dire situation of just trying to keep the lights on at their house and pay their electricity bills. So if you have a couple of bucks, please consider throwing it the way of any one of those three. If you can't donate, that's perfectly fine. But if you can share those links out on social media, please do so. And thank you for that. Couple more hellos, and then we'll get into it. Gulf City DCC 182, hello. Mr. Tickletrunk, hello. Felda, hello. Bridget, hello. And is that everybody? Ebony Williams, hello. Texas Attorney General Secret Agent, hello. Shadowclaw, hello. All right, everybody. This one clocks in at just under 13 minutes. So let's get going. The first little part here is silent because I took out the music for, I don't know, paranoia reasons. So we'll just get the logo. And this is an actual TED Talk. This is the high quality stuff, guys. This is the uncut pure of the TED stash. So let's proceed. So if you can't hear anything, that's fine.
There's a story of mine that I've told about 1 million different times.
Okay, there's a story of hers she wants to tell, or she has told 1 million different times. You guys hear that all right? Let me know in the chat. Also, have your bingo card ready, because if there's a story she's told 1 million times, we either have maybe a childhood or family anecdote, or maybe an anecdote that never happened. We'll find out. Here it says Advocatus Diaboli. Sounds good, says Somnambulation, and sounds good, says Derek LaRue. With that, let's go.
And it goes a little something like this.
Okay.
When I was 10.
Oh, okay. Childhood or family anecdote. Well, that was quick. So over on the bingo card, circling childhood or family anecdote, which appears right above Dog Cat Fox.
My family and I packed up our entire lives into large suitcases and dragged them across the Pacific to a foreign land called Canada.
Wow, that must have been quite the haul to... Wait, did you had a boat, right? You dragged... What? Okay, I know, I'm being literal.
I was put in a school where I was the only Asian kid in my grade. And I got teased for my broken English, Asian features, and funny-smelling ethnic lunches.
Okay.
Racism was a real doozy.
Oh, was that racism? Or just not being familiar with things? Also, kids making fun of things. You know, I was made fun of for how I looked. I was made fun of for how I talked. I was made fun of for a lot of things. Was it racism? But okay.
But don't feel bad.
No.
Through the magical healing powers of extracurricular activities and pure perseverance, I stand before you today a new woman, healthy, healed, and extremely employable.
Okay.
You wouldn't even be able to tell from just looking at me that I was once the weird little immigrant girl who begged her mom to pack PB&J sandwiches so she wouldn't have to eat lunch alone in the bathroom.
You're right. I know very little about you by looking at you because looking at you tells me nothing about who you are, if you can believe it. I know it's kind of an old line of mine by now, but it's still true. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. That's unfamiliar culturalism, not racism. Well, without any more specific examples, yeah. And also kids. She said she was 10 years old. Kids. They make fun of everybody for everything. Whether it's actually fueled by racism or just being kids, I don't know. Yeah, childhood squabbles, I have a hard time. Yeah, anyway.
This is a story that I've told in academic essays, job interviews, and even in the very application that got me into this fine university.
And how do you feel about that?
It's also a story that, despite all of its truth, I've come to hate.
Aha. Okay, this is what I was curious about. Is she going to deride the idea of trying to leverage emotional sympathy or pity for the sake of getting yourself ahead in the world? Or at least that's the context clues. Let's see where it takes us.
Now, this is a story that I don't have copyright claim over.
Oh, thank goodness for that. I'm glad to hear that in my situation.
It's one that continues to be regurgitated by immigrant kids all across the country to be served on a silver platter to prestigious universities who chew these stories and spit out acceptance letters in return.
Oh my. Yes, we have a all right. Well, my respect for our speaker is rising by the minute.
The contents of the story may change. Instead of a difficult immigration experience, it might be the death of a loved one, a chronic illness, or a racist encounter. But what remains constant is the moral. A bad thing happened to me, but it made me a good person.
Yes. Well, here's the thing, and I'm sure she'll probably cover this as well, and this isn't a slight against her or anything. Redemption, perseverance is always celebrated more than consistency. Right? If I have a story of I've always followed the rules, I've always paid my taxes, I've always done my job, I never went outside the lines, and so on, it's a boring story, right? But if I spent the first, 15 years of my adult life, let's say, in poverty and then selling drugs or doing petty crimes and everything, but then I had a moment of revelation and inspiration, and I changed my life and I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and became something better. That's a far more interesting and compelling story to people. It's just sort of that natural inclination we have with, overcoming things, right? Beating the obstacles, beating the odds. So it is a very, path of least resistance to getting some kind of emotional cachet or social credit or something. So, yeah, I'm curious to see what her argument is going to be against it.
This is part of the larger phenomenon that I'm here to talk about today. The overwhelming pressure being put on high school students to write about their deepest traumas in their college applications, with the hopes that they seem resilient and interesting enough to be given a spot.
Yes, that's the Punky Brewster syndrome. I've called it that before. For those of you that are too young to know, because I can understand there was a show back in the 80s called Punky Brewster, and it was kind of a, let's just call it quasi-urban fantasy comedy show in the sense that you had this orphan named Punky Brewster who wore mismatched socks and colorful hair braids and was all just a walking rainbow. And coming into a very drab world and into the life of a very drab old man that adopted her. And she was this unique, shining individual in a world of just, beige. And the idea that you could be the Punky Brewster within your community back in the 80s and so on was a possibility. You could shine in a relatively small fishbowl. With the rise of social media, however, trying to stand out, trying to be special, trying to be the Punky Brewster, the fishbowl has gotten a lot bigger. And so everybody's got to try to one-up each other for just how special they are and or how victimized they are to stand out.
I believe that these are not only bad metrics by which to evaluate applicants,
yes,
but also incredibly harmful to the storyteller themselves and risks reinforcing existing inequities in higher education.
Oh my gosh, it's a rare day where I have a TED or a TEDx where I'm like nodding along, going like, yes, I agree. Now, here's the thing though. She has described in the course of her story about literally playing victim, or at least playing on her victimhood. So even though that's not, her general attitude about it, she has talked about playing victim. So I'm circling that one. Let's go over the bingo card real quick, just to remind ourselves what we're listening for. So aside from plays victim, we have leaves out vital context, weightless example, anecdote that probably never happened, benevolent condescension, self-vilification or wretchedness, feminism, childhood or family anecdote, which we've already covered, privilege, sales pitch for product or service, not yet, microaggressions or unconscious bias. Yeah, when she was talking about her childhood experience, actually, I hate to double dip into an anecdote as well, but she did effectively talk about that. Patriarchy, circling free space, because why not? Wage gap, not yet. Mind reading or assumes motives. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. Is trauma essay a new buzzword or buzz phrase? I guess it'll depend if she says something I like to call. Word salad, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Not yet explicitly. Marginalized, marginalization. Did she say marginalized earlier? I can't remember. Maybe she did. Contradicts own point or argument. Systemic or institutional. A list. White supremacy. Argumentative non sequitur. And collectivizes own demographic. Maybe. I can't recall. If somebody in the chat can remember whether or not she said marginalized, then let me know. But otherwise, so far we have on the board plays victim, childhood or family anecdote, microaggressions or unconscious bias, and lastly, free space. So keep your ears open for anything else.
There's also pressure that's being amplified by admissions counselors themselves, who play a huge role in influencing what applicants decide to write about.
Sure.
Take, for example, this tip from the MIT admissions blog.
An example? This early? Oh my gosh, I think this might be my favorite TED. Oh, wait. Didn't I get this off the TED page? This is a TEDx. I didn't even notice the branding there on the floor. I thought I got this off of the TED. I mean, it's not impossible I got it off of the TED page because TED has a tendency to also repost TEDx's. But either way, this might be my favorite TEDx-ish whatever talk that I've listened to recently.
Where the author compares two different introductions for a potential essay.
Okay.
The first one reads, I'm honored to apply for the Master of Library Science program at the University of Okoboji. For as long as I can remember, I've had a love affair with books. Since I was 11, I've wanted to be a librarian.
Okay, yes, a statement of interest, a statement of merit, and so on. A passion for the subject. Very good.
The second introduction reads, when I was 11, my great aunt Gretchen passed away and left me something that changed my life. A library of about 5,000 books. Some of my best days were spent arranging and reading her books. Since then, I've wanted to become a librarian.
Okay. Yeah, so you have a very subject-focused one, and then you have a subject-focused one, plus a little tug at the heartstrings.
The author notes that the second introduction is much more striking and leaves a much better impression.
Yeah, because like I say, overcoming hardship is much more interesting than simple consistency or passion.
Consider another tip from collegeessayguide.com, where he advises students to get personal. He says, weirdly, including painful memories and what you learn from them usually helps a personal statement meet the goals of a college application essay. Yes. You come off as humble, accessible, likable, and mature. Yeah,
and since it's also manufactured, also a little bit disingenuous, depending. But of course, you can't say that, right? You can't as the college admissions guy, you can't say like, I don't believe you had that happen, because how do you know, right? And just propriety says you're not going to try to diminish or dismiss somebody's painful experience or something.
Confessions from admissions officers themselves can also be telling. Aya Waller-Bey, a former admissions officer from Georgetown University, said in a Forbes article that within months on the job, I saw how the personal statements of Black and other racially minoritized students differed from those of white applicants. Black students highlighted resilience through stories of survival, while their counterparts wrote casual essays about service abroad and sporting championships.
I wonder who might have been encouraging the idea to believe that you are a perpetual victim. I wonder where that might have come from over, say, the last decade or so.
Black students shared their pain. White students shared their passions. Now, lastly, and perhaps the least reliable source, is my own life. I remember feeling this way when I was applying to universities. Like I had no other choice, no other experiences worthy of mentioning, and no other merit beyond the fact that I had thrived despite what I had gone through.
Right. Yeah, exactly. This is great. I mean, this is really good. I like this so far. This really really highlights the results of the victimhood culture that we've been. I mean, the younger generation, let's say more so than myself, have been simmering in for the better part of the last decade. And encouraging this stuff as a way to get ahead, to get an advantage. Now, obviously, telling a sob story is not a new tactic to try to get sympathy or to try to get ahead in the world or try to ease somebody else's hesitation about you or whatever else. But making it part and parcel with the system, with the institutions, yeah, I think that's relatively new.
I even remember worrying that my tale wouldn't be harrowing enough after hearing from a counselor that writing about immigration has become a bit of a cliche.
Yes, embellish. Yeah, I'm not telling you to embellish. I'm just saying, focus. Really describe your pain. Really describe your hardship. I'm not telling you to fib or lie. I'm just saying you want to lean in a bit more on how much you hurt
because of how overused it is.
Yeah.
So what's the university's role in all of this? And
yes,
why are these stories even harmful to begin with? Well, I believe that using your college application essay to discuss your trauma actually doesn't help you process it. And there are a couple different reasons why.
Oh, was part of the utility of the essay to process your trauma? I didn't think that. I don't remember hearing so far that it was a therapy session as well. Is that supposed to be part of it?
First, writing about a difficult experience is, as you may have guessed, difficult.
It depends on the person. Some people have handled it better than others.
Not only do you have to relive the event itself, but you also have to actively suppress any negative emotions that arise during the process.
Why? Why do you, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Suppress any negative emotions that arise during the process of writing it? How is that? That part I don't understand. Why couldn't I be sad writing about a sad thing? Or why couldn't I feel angry while writing about an angry thing? What?
That kind of emotional labor can be taxing for anybody, but perhaps especially so for these young applicants who haven't had enough time on this world to process the terrible things that have happened to them.
Okay, there was a edit there that jumped from one statement to the next. I'm going to back up a little bit because I was about to cut her off. Okay, well now this has taken a turn into a direction I don't necessarily agree with. Well, first off, I guess my question is, are these essays required, or is it just something that's being encouraged by counselors and being, for lack of a better phrase, fetishized by universities? Secondly, I don't know, putting somebody through that trauma again. Sure, if they don't want to talk about it and you're pushing them to do it, that's one thing. But ultimately, if you're writing it down, you're making a choice to make that part of your story to the college or otherwise. And once you've decided to do that, I don't know, that's emotional labor. As soon as I heard emotional labor, I'm like, wait a second.
Things that have happened to them. For that space to be one in which they're confessing to a faceless stranger who gets to make the most consequential decision of their adolescent life imposes an incredibly heavy psychological burden.
I mean, it could. I mean, applying for college, especially if you're not sure what you're going to do, I mean, it's always a stressful time. It's certainly not helped if you feel compelled to have to, vent your darkest experiences or something onto a page in order to try to gain somebody else's, I'll say, favor or pity, depending on the circumstances. Okay, I can see that. I mean, to me, although I wonder if she'll bring this up, my primary concern would be effectively trying to commoditize your own victimhood and being taught a lesson that you can get ahead in the world if you just give the saddest story you possibly can. That kind of emotional manipulation and being rewarded for it, that to me seems like the more dangerous aspect to it, personally.
I mean, imagine if you walked into your therapy appointment and your therapist tells you that they're not going to respond to anything you tell them except with a rejection or acceptance email sent months later.
Well, that's also a learning experience. It's also a beneficial one to overcome rejection or to learn to deal with it in a healthy manner. So, I mean, that's a side note, but it's also important.
And also that whatever you tell them would determine the trajectory of your entire academic and professional career.
Maybe, I just think about that clip from the Michael Moore movie, Bowling for Columbine, where he's talking to the guys who started South Park. And they're telling stories about the amount of pressure that they were put under in high school or the kinds of things they saw. It's like, if you don't pass this test, you're never going to go anywhere. Your life's over. Da, 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 da. This is really where the parents come in. This is where the parents come in, or family support comes in to say, it's not the end of the world if this one college doesn't accept you. You're smart. You have passion. You have interests. Anything can happen, but you have to work for it, and so on. Right? I hope that today's college students or potential college students are not existing in a bubble away from any other kind of support or encouragement in their lives.
Hard to imagine that being therapeutic. Secondly, the trauma essay makes one assumption that is extremely problematic. It's not always the learning opportunity through which you can gain more confidence or develop better time management skills.
Wait. Okay, hold on. I mean, maybe I missed it. Maybe it was edited out. I can't tell. So the sales pitch for doing these essays is that it will be therapeutic, because that's what it sounds like she's implying, is that somewhere along the line, someone's being told that this is actually helpful on a therapeutic level, which again seems odd. And now the argument is it's not going to teach you about time management. What about the lesson, the probably not productive lesson, that playing up your victimhood in order to manipulate other people is not a good lesson for life?
Sometimes it's just a sucky thing that really sucks.
Okay, I don't have a square on the board for favorite phrase of the presentation, but that's my favorite phrase so far. A sucky thing that really sucks. I like that. That was great. That's not a WTF moment. That was just a funny line.
And asking students to prove how they turn their pain into progress ignores this truth and falls prey to the toxic positivity narrative that everything happens for a reason, ignoring the very valid resentment and anger that many victims still feel.
Okay. In the sense that I agree with her that encouraging kids to drum up their worst experiences, either to dig them up and or to embellish them for the sake of whatever, even if there's something that they don't like to talk about or they're not comfortable with, yeah, I'm not on board with that. But otherwise, are those really the worst elements of this process? I hope we get to something a bit more meaningful along the way.
Lastly, the things we write aren't just informed by our experiences. They shape how we view those experiences as well.
They can. I mean, I've asked that question. I actually literally asked that question in college at one point. We had a visiting author, and he had written a book about his childhood experiences and things. And it was I think he was a local author. And I had the experience earlier in my college career, and I think I even mentioned this class in a previous episode or something, where I wrote a story. It was a class. You had to do one story about love and one story about death. And in the story about death, I wrote of a real experience that happened to me between my father and I after his father had died. And I tried to, tell this story in a way that was both interesting while also telling something that really happened to me. And so when I was talking to this author later on in my college time, I asked him, I said, what kind of risk do you see in trying to turn your real life experiences into a engaging and entertaining narrative where your need to make the story interesting risks you changing or altering either reality or your own memory of the events? And does that worry you that you risk sort of making invalid or less genuine your own story in the process of trying to effectively dramatize it or entertainize it? And I if I recall, I kind of gave him pause on that, and he said, well, the story's still true, and if I try to articulate it after the fact in a way that's entertaining for people, I'm hoping they at least get the idea of it. I mean, my story still remains true, and etc. It wasn't the best answer. It didn't really feel that satisfying, but at the same time, it's like, how else can you tell a story, right? Or make it interesting or make it compelling? And where is the line between relaying a story accurately and relaying a story entertainingly?
And if we're writing about our trauma to prove to our admissions officer that we're worthy of a decent education, then it becomes necessary to sanitize our pain.
Or to embellish it. I mean, if the lesson here is you're going to gain ground for your victimhood, are you necessarily going to sanitize it, or are you more encouraged to galvanize it?
To make it marketable and strategic. To scrub away all the suffering. So all that's left is what will fit into the narrow margins of what is palatable.
Not necessarily. That seems like the opposite lesson to what's being pushed and what you're warning about. If you're warning about people pushing kids to try to leverage their worst experiences into an advantage, sanitizing it seems like not the way to go to achieve that end.
And this is what I see as being the fundamental contradiction at the heart of the trauma essay.
Okay.
It seems to give the writer free rein of vulnerability, but actually leaves them very little room to be vulnerable.
Well, the utility of the essay isn't for therapy. The utility of the essay is to gain sympathy. The beginning of the talk, that sounded like the direction she was taking this, and she even, alluded to it. But now it's like the essay itself has to have some fundamental purpose outside of getting an advantage in college admissions. Okay.
Your story has to be just sad enough that it gains sympathy, but not so sad that it makes you seem beyond help.
Okay. I mean, I guess. Again, I don't know if she said, maybe I missed it. Is this something that's now required or encouraged to be added to your college admissions?
Just critical enough to inspire change, but not so much that it actually criticizes systemic structures.
Oh, systemic. Okay, well, systemic institutional, that's up on the board. So circling that one. Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the first lessons I learned when writing creatively in my English classes and otherwise. You're writing for your audience. And what seems to be encouraged here is essentially biographical creative writing of an influential nature. You're trying to write a persuasive essay using your own lived experiences to make somebody feel sorry for you. So yes, you're writing for your audience. There's a goal here. Why aren't we talking about the key element of this? And that's trying to manipulate the emotions of the reader in order to gain ground in being selected.
Just honest enough to seem real, but not so unfiltered that it creates discomfort.
I guess so.
The protagonist also overcomes whatever struggle they're facing by the end of the 500 word count, instilling the reader with a sense of optimism that despite our deeply unequal society, it is possible to rise through the ranks and overcome all the isms. This, of course, is not the reality of our world today.
Oh, it's not? Well, how did you achieve where you're at?
And for me, this looked like settling for the familiar story of the stinky lunch, one that's been told so many times that it's devoid of any real meaning.
If you say so. I mean, I guess I just don't listen to many people giving me their sob stories about being made fun of in school. It's not that I can't empathize, but it's also not unique because I had quite the series of experiences in being belittled, bullied, beaten up, dismissed, made fun of, made small in my growing up for things that I had no control over. My eyesight requiring glasses, my height, my overall demeanor growing up as a kid. I was very quiet and shy, yeah, I get it. Okay.
Instead of talking about the ongoing social and political disenfranchisement of immigrants, the permanent loss of cultural identity that I suffered, or the sense of disbelonging that still haunts me every time I make a grammar mistake or someone mispronounces my name.
Oh, good gravy. Boy, this has taken a turn. Okay. The operative word in self-esteem is self. Nobody else is responsible for your self-esteem. Offense is taken, never given. If somebody makes fun of you or, makes a slight at you about your culture, your attitude, your pronunciation, just let it go, as Frozen would say, and you'll be better off. Okay, and pronouncing your name. As we know, everybody who's a racist knows how to accurately and correctly pronounce every name on the planet. So when they mispronounce a name, they're doing so intentionally and willfully because they really know how to pronounce it correctly, but are saying it wrong to offend the person. Obviously.
These are all struggles that never really go away.
Only because you choose to maintain them.
But are carefully tucked away in my essay because they don't fit the linear narrative that is being constructed.
Okay, maybe if you took us through more in detail the structure of a trauma essay. It basically has to be a story like, I had a terrible experience. This experience affected me in this way. I've overcome this experience in order to be the college student you need to admit to your college. Is that it?
But how are universities to blame for all of this? I mean, they never explicitly ask students to trauma dump in their essays, and many admissions experts have actually come out and discouraged discussing explicit trauma in essays.
Well, good for those colleges. Yeah, how did we get to a point where victimhood is currency amongst college students in education and society in general? How did we come to a point where it's so popular to play up how much of a victim you are? I don't know. Where did that come from?
However, I still don't think that universities are blameless.
No, they're not blameless. It depends on the university, obviously, but what do you mean?
The reason why the trauma essay is so ubiquitous is because it seems to be working.
Seems to be. Okay, well, you're right. It does seem to be working. Didn't you say you did this as well? I mean, I guess the question is, if you submit a trauma essay as an attempt to leverage the admission officer's emotions to your side, and you get in over someone else who just says, I have a passion for this subject and I've been studying dinosaurs since I was 2 years old and I really love dinosaurs. Please let me into your paleontology program. Whereas somebody else says, I once tripped over a dinosaur bone and broke my knee, and then I had to stumble out of the desert carrying a dinosaur bone, and now I'm a better person for it. If you actually got into college and you knew for a fact that your tale of woe real, imagined, or otherwise, got you an edge over somebody else, would you feel bad about that? Should you feel bad about that?
Anne Trebek, who helped low-income high school students at Oberlin College write their essays, expresses the ethical dilemma that she faces.
Okay.
By pushing students to reveal their horror stories, I risk taking away their dignity. But by not pushing, I could be hindering their chances of getting into their dream school.
I would lean on the principle then. Even if it doesn't work out for them, you should teach them the principle. In my mind, there's no moral dilemma. You either rise on your merits or you don't. If you're going to teach kids that, again, commoditizing their victimhood is a good thing, that is not a lesson I would want to teach children, even children that are just going into college, because they're still kids. Don't teach that lesson. Lean on the principle.
Whether trauma essays and acceptance letters are actually causally correlated is impossible to tell from the outside.
That's why you should teach the principle of not. Look, I'm more concerned about perpetuating the idea that because I had a hard time in life, you should give me an advantage. Glorifying the pity party. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't an argument to be made when there's a disparity between circumstances. And I said this actually in the little voice chat I did before the show on the Discord server. By the way, if you'd like to join the Discord server, wait till the end of the show for a link. Where I said I was ostensibly talking about what we're going to watch tonight and also what we watched last week and affirmative action. And now affirmative action is effectively based around making race and or gender and or orientation these days into a credit score ahead of getting into a college. Whereas if two candidates come to a college looking for admissions and or scholarships or whatever else, and they both have equal grades, let's say, equal grade point averages, but one comes from a economically disadvantaged situation versus the other student, I would tend to weigh the fact that they were able to maintain their grades, maintain their scholarship in the face of what would otherwise be a very, trying situation compared to the other student. That shows a certain level of merit beyond the normal. Now, how you play up that situation, if you're just looking at what was the earnings of their parents or what was, their income, et cetera, and nothing else without any sort of narrative details, that would make sense to me. That would seem to me to be something to consider. Not necessarily make it an instant win, but something to consider. But yeah, these stories about trauma, these stories about I had a hard time, not so much. So there's a line. I think it's a fairly clear line. Are you playing up a narrative in a story, or can you just show actual hard numbers as circumstance?
So this could all just be speculation and myth. But in failing to resolutely clear up these speculation and myths about whether trauma essays are rewarded or discouraged, universities are indirectly enabling the rise of the trauma essay and all of its harmful implications.
Except the harmful implication you're not mentioning, which is bizarre to me. And we're almost, 3/4 of the way through this thing. Again, the lesson that victimhood sells. I think that's the most harmful element of this idea. But she's right. Universities should not be rewarding and should be actively discouraging students from trying to play up trauma over merit. I agree with that part of it. So those universities that actively say we don't weigh stories of hardship and that sort of thing in your cover letters, good for them. So on that point, I agree with her.
So what are they to do about all of this? Well, first of all, I think that this is a problem that goes much deeper than individual universities, and even perhaps the institution of higher education itself.
Well, obviously, because if high school counselors are encouraging students to add a little extra spice to their cover letter or their story or whatever, then yeah, no, it goes further into the educational system than just higher education. Yeah.
It's rooted in the cultural obsession with appropriating trauma and making it consumable.
Yes. Yes. There we go. Yes.
As well as the systemic tendency to tokenize oppressed people and their experiences.
Yes. I wouldn't have said consumable again. I would have said commodified or commodifiable. But yes. Okay. Now we're getting to something that makes a bit more sense to me.
But there are still things that universities can do to make things better.
Okay.
First, they can
Yes.
be more transparent about their admissions guidelines.
Okay, well, that's an official list as far as I'm concerned. First, okay, so circling a list. All right, so let me back up a little bit so I can get that one again because I don't want to miss
To
it.
tokenize oppressed people and their experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But there are still things that universities can do to make things better.
Yes.
First, they can be more transparent about their admissions guidelines.
Okay, and explicitly say these are the things that are required and don't leave any room to imagine there's something else you have to add.
If it's really true that they don't want to reward trauma storytelling just for the sake of it, then they should be more forthcoming about this expectation. They could also restructure their prompts to avoid putting pressure on students to talk about past hardships and adversities, and instead refocus prompts to ask students about their goals for the future and their academic interests.
Yes, all very good passive ways to try to set these kind of things aside. Good.
Secondly, admissions counselors should be trauma informed and trained in working with BIPOC folk.
What did you say a minute ago about tokenizing experience? What did you just say a minute ago? So now special consideration has to be given to people on the basis of their race. In what way?
As the unofficial gatekeepers to the secrets of getting into your dream college, they should wield their power responsibly and not pressure students to talk about traumatic experiences that they're not yet ready to talk about.
When did trauma become an exclusively BIPOC realm? So if I'm white, I'm what, free from having to worry about getting an edge on the basis of trauma? Trauma only applies on. Oh, okay. Well, that took a turn.
Lastly, and this one's for anyone who's actually applying to a post-secondary institution sometime soon.
Okay.
Remember that you are more than the bad things that happen to you.
Yes, except that unfortunately, the bad things happening to you is part and parcel with identity politics and intersectionality and victimhood culture and everything else. I agree. You are more than just the bad things that have happened to you. But man, oh man, there are forces out there right now that are ridiculously difficult to overcome in learning that lesson. This is why the parents are so important.
I know that when it seems like every other classmate of yours is writing an essay that could be adapted for an HBO original drama, that you may feel like your experiences are not worth talking about.
Uh-huh, but that's what we're trying to discourage people from doing, right?
But I promise that they are.
Wait, they are worth talking about? What?
You just have to find your voice.
Well, what if my voice is leveraging my victimhood? What?
And use it.
But no, wait. You just said don't make your entire identity about the bad things that have happened to you. You're more than that, right? But now you're saying, oh, I mean, don't get discouraged by the people putting out their sob stories. You just have to find your voice to what? More effectively tell your sob story? I'm very confused now. Thank you, Frank Hubbard the Fourth. If only I knew I was too privileged for trauma. I know, right? Trauma doesn't happen to people with certain skin colors, I guess. And admission officers have to be specially trained to handle particular people on the basis of their race. I'm circling leaves out vital context. Like, why? Why? And how? Okay. Anyway, I got and also contradicts own point or argument just then. I mean, it might be seen as kind of minor, but at the same time, you're more than the bad things that have happened to you. But just try to find your voice to rise above the other students in their own sob stories. What?
Now, as much as I don't want to live that nail-bitingly stressful time of my life ever again,
except for all of the pains and struggles that you say have stuck with you forever and continue to do so. Yeah.
I can't help but wonder, what would I have written about if I got the chance to apply to UBC again?
Well, you don't have to wonder too hard. With your new knowledge and opinion and perspective, what would you have written?
This time, absent the pressure to strategically use my immigrant background to gain sympathy points.
Okay, what would you have said then?
Maybe I would have written about how I overcame my fear of public speaking and became comfortable with being the loudest voice in the room.
I mean, that's not a specific trauma, but that's still. I don't know. Did she mention what department or degree she was going for when she applied, or was she just going for general studies or something? Like she had the librarian example, but that was somebody else. So, okay, so you're overcoming hardship again.
Or I could have written about watching trashy reality television is what first sparked my interest in political science.
Okay, I mean that's kind of an odd connection, but if you explain that connection, that might be an interesting story.
Or maybe I still would have written about my immigrant story, because that was a big part of my life journey and still impacts me to this day.
Well, but how does it relate to your passion for education or the area in which you want to go to? That's the first thing I'd say. Okay, so political science, right? Okay, well, if you said something to the effect of, I spent the first 10 years of my life in a country where the political structure was this. And then when I came to Canada, I think she said it was Canada. When I came to Canada, it was a major culture shock to experience the world in this way. But having lived part of my life and through my parents in one culture and seeing how the dynamic is different in this other country and this other culture, I possess a unique perspective on global politics, something like that. I mean, you have to draw a line between your experience and what you're aiming for, right? Okay. Now, would that be leveraging trauma? No, that'd be leveraging experience, applicable experience. You wouldn't be telling a horror story of being teased as a kid. You'd be telling a story of knowledge you had gained through experience and how you want to or feel as though you could apply it to your further studies. That would be a great avenue. That would make a lot more sense. And, there you go. That'd be a great argument. But okay, reality TV.
But I would have done it on my own terms. Instead of being written as a one-dimensional trauma-turned-triumph drama, I would have been able to tell a story that actually reflects who I am today.
Again, I think the best avenue would be to take something from your life that the knowledge and experience you gained from that event directly applies to what you're hoping to achieve or what area you're hoping to pursue in school, and leave out the emotion. Just talk about the mechanisms of your own enrichment and perspective towards your goal. That would be the best way to go about it. Even if it's derived from something traumatic, don't dwell on the trauma, dwell on the lesson.
And acknowledge the fact that my journey is ongoing and it doesn't begin or end with my racial identity.
I know it doesn't. And your racial identity. Okay, well there's an issue right there. Your race is not an identity. You start racial identitarianism is poison, right? People making fun of you in school because they made assumptions about you on the basis of what you look like, right? Okay, so either you are rejecting that kind of thinking or you're embracing it.
This is the kind of ownership that I wish for everyone to one day have over their story. And now it's up for universities to decide whether they get to tell it. Thank you.
Kind of a mixed bag, this one. I mean, on the one hand, obviously, as I said, I agree with the premise that encouraging students to make use of their hardships for sympathy points is not a lesson that I would want to encourage, either as a parent, if I were a parent, or if I were in charge of admissions at a university or anything else. That's not a principle I would want to nudge kids down. First on the principle of let's not try to turn your hardships into currency, but she does have a point about trying to push kids into drumming up their most worst experiences into a letter to send off to some stranger to try to get them to pay attention to them. That's also a valid point too. But she never came to that conclusion. She never mentioned that as one of the downsides of this process, except a little bit. Anyway, that's all said. I've said my bit. Let's go to the bingo card real quick and go through this process. Let me zoom in on that just a smidge. If you have arguments for squares to be circled, hold on to them for just a minute. I'm going to go over the card one more time myself, and then that's the card as it stands right now. Okay, weightless example. I mean, the literal examples that she gave were on point. I'm trying to think of anything elsewise that she said to back up her argument that didn't land. Entirely. I might need some extra memories on this because as I think about it, nothing quite comes to mind. Anecdote that probably never happened. I can believe that she was made fun of. That was like the first anecdote she gave us. Her story coming across from to Canada, I believe that. None of the stories that she told or the scenarios that she put out there sounded like too good to be true or whatever. So I can accept those. Benevolent condescension. I never really felt condescended to in any way, shape, or form, or that she was condescending to anyone in particular. I felt that her argument was missing a couple of marks, but I didn't feel like it was condescending. Self-vilification or wretchedness. A little bit in that she regretted having participated in the trauma essay process. And I know it's a thin justification to circle it, but it was there. She did make a confession to having, become part of it. Feminism, no, she never really brought up gender. Privilege, there was an implication throughout, and especially when she started bringing up how admissions officers had to specifically have training on how to handle people of a particular skin color. And also the white students versus the Hispanic and black students, sales pitches for themselves, no pun intended for the next square. Yeah, there was an implication there. Sales pitch for product or service. No, this wasn't a sales pitch. Nothing was mentioned, no books, no apps, no anything in particular, so I can't circle that one. Patriarchy, again, she didn't really talk about any kind of gender disparities there anywhere. Wage gap, no. Mind reading assumes motives. No, I mean, she gave exception to the idea that she can't say for certain that colleges do or do not give value to these essays. So she wasn't saying they do, but she was saying that these things are prevalent and kids are, in some cases, being pushed to them. So there wasn't a whole lot of assumption there, as far as I can recall. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. Okay, well, here's the real question here, and here's the bingo question. Is trauma essay a new buzzword or buzz phrase? She never said something I like to call, and the very phrase itself sounds a pejorative. So she's actually sort of, obviously sort of quasi insulting the practice. But is it something that she just made up, or she never said something I like to call trauma essays? So I'm a little hesitant to circle that. I'm going to leave that there. Word salad. No, I never really felt like anything she was saying was all completely disjointed or disconnected. Things were left out. Things felt a little off kilter, but I didn't feel like it was word salad. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was implied. There was some the only reason that I'm about to circle it is because, again, we come back to that caveat that she gave that the admissions officers need special training specifically for BIPOC people. That's the part that kind of catches my brain on that one. Marginalization. Did she say marginalize or marginalization early in the talk? I thought she did. I'm not sure. But even if she didn't, over the course of her own story and just as an element of the themes to the other stories she was telling, that was there. That notion was present. White supremacy. After circling privilege, I'm hesitant to circle white supremacy. I know. Well, I'm open to arguments, but I'm a little argumentative non sequitur. Did she bring up anything that just had no? Again, I hate to double dip or triple dip now, as it were. But again, what was the point of bringing up the special training? What did that have to do with anything? Trauma doesn't apply to certain skin colors. I don't get that part. And collectivize his own demographic. I mean, she talked explicitly about her story in so many instances. I'm hesitant to circle that because I don't think she ever said like as an Asian woman or something like that. She was talking about her own personal experiences and also that you're not defined by, et cetera. So yeah, I know this might be a little, this was a very different talk from the ones I usually look at because I was on board half the time. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. So you guys, if you have arguments for squares to be circled, please put them in the chat now. If you've already put it there and I've missed it, please just repost it and I'll try to get to it. Let's see. Mr. E, Scribelet, I got news for this speaker. If it truly is trauma, that is not something that is going to be a desired talking point. If her trauma is imagined slights, it's not trauma. Non sequitur. Well, I not having seen her statement, I don't know what is a slight or something else. I don't know what she talked about. She alluded to it. As far as being a non sequitur, kind of already did it. But that's that. But that is the point, though. That's the point that she's making, is that it is a desired talking point. There is this encouragement of classing up your trauma for the sake of trying to get an advantage on people. It shouldn't be in this instance, but she's making the argument, and I can believe it given the culture these days that it is. Mr. R, I got Mr. E in my head, and Mr. R is here. Mike R, thank you so much. Sucky things that suck. New buzzword. A new buzzword buzz phrase. Oh, now am I did highlight that, didn't I? You know what? I know you might hate me. It might seem cheap, but it was pretty good. I might end up having to use that later on in life. So yeah.
Ooh, that's a bingo, right?
Yeah.
Our first bingo. Maybe our only bingo. We'll see. I'll see what the arguments are elsewise. Yeah, and I guess since I made such an effort to point out that one phrase, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Amy Minty, condescension. She implied that white people had letters about ski club overseas studies while BIPOC had trauma letters to admission. That's a privilege argument. I don't know if it's a condescension. Benevolent condescension. Okay. If you can't expand on that, expand on it. don't know if it quite crosses that line. Or I need a different quote, perhaps. Advocates Diablo, Scribble, she did collectivize herself and other kids as stink lunch kids. Oh, you mean her story? Oh, the immigrant story. You're right. Yeah, well, that's one element of it, but she did collectivize the immigrant story, and her being an immigrant. Yeah, okay. You know what? You got it. That's a good argument. I like that. All right, there you go. Another square. Let me scroll up a bit in case I missed something. Trauma drama. Beachy could use as trauma drama. I've heard that before, though. That she can't give her credit for that. Can't give her the credit for that. I mean, it was. I've heard that before. Bridget, benevolent condescension. Your lives are perfect enough that you have no trauma. Oh, by the by saying that the counselors need to be specially trained. I hate to keep triple, quadruple dipping on that, but yeah, but here's the thing, but was it benevolent, right? Here, that's the element. It's like, was that like the soft bigotry of low expectations kind of thing? That's the line that I don't think was crossed. Assuming someone else doesn't experience something doesn't sound, it sounds dismissive, sounds condescending, but is it benevolent condescension, right? Assuming someone can't do something or whatever, but you're being kind about it. It's like, there, bless your heart kind of thing. That's the element that I don't think is there. Unless you've got, it's not just about being condescending. Being condescending is part, dime a dozen, but that benevolent condescension, that's really the breaking point there. That's, again, if somebody has a good argument or a good example, by all means, but I don't think that meets the threshold. And if you think my not thinking it doesn't meet the threshold is wrong, please, argue against my conclusion. I have no problem with that. Mr. E, sales pitch. She made a point of pitching herself to the audience, which is on a TEDx, meaning it will have reach, that she was readily hireable now. Oh, that's right. She did say I'm hireable. Oh. Product or service? Nah, sorry. Let's see. Bridget, she's condescending to white people, lift up BIPOC, being benevolent, sort of a you don't have to worry about those essays. Advocates Diablo would be benevolent in the fact that she is stating it as a compliment that white kids cannot have trauma. Faithless. The POC have to use trauma to get in where the white kids, there, you poor... I don't know that I've ever seen this much support or argumentation for a square that is not going to lead to a bingo. Okay, you know what? You got me. That I think Faithless probably put it the most persuasively to me, but not to diminish anybody else's attempt. Okay, you got me. All right. Okay. The square has been circled. That's okay. I appreciate that. Okay. Okay, let's see. Any other arguments for squares to be circled? Again, like weightless example. Again, all of her examples were on point with her presentation. Nothing felt like it was completely absent or disconnected. So I don't think that applies. Anecdote that probably never happened. Again, nothing of the stories that she told sounded so outrageously whatever that they felt false. Feminism, patriarchy, she never brought up any kind of gender disparities or anything. Sales pitch for product or service. There was no app, there was no book, there was no organization or charity she was working for, nothing like that. So yeah, the hiring thing at the start, yeah, it was a joke. Wasn't a sales pitch. Wage gap. No, I mean, she talked about like, oh yeah, if you don't get into this college, your future is messed up. That wasn't. Yeah, that's as close as it came. Mind reading or assumes motives. Maybe there's something in there, but she always gave an exception. She never made like a declarative statement that, this is how people think or whatever else. And yeah, word salad. No, I mean, the presentation was not badly constructed and nothing made me go, what is she saying? Or it was just not, random words for the sake of filling up time. I think it missed a major point that I would have made immediately. But other than that, yeah, it was an okay presentation. And then white supremacy, not quite. I mean, barring there being a good argument. Let's see. Any other arguments, guys? I'm not seeing anything yet. So, all right. Well, I think I will move towards wrapping things up. So there you go. We had a bingo, several other squares circled, and I learned something. I had never heard about trauma essays. Now, the elements that I've had described to me in different places about diversity statements, depending on how that was constructed, could probably qualify as trauma essays, because those are also classically about underlining, what difficulties you've overcome or how your background or whatever else has informed your lived experience towards college. So they might be, depending on the telling, 6 of one thing, half a dozen of the other. But I was curious to find out exactly what was a trauma essay. And then again, what was the speaker's take on the subject? So it was interesting. It was a mixed bag. I was on board with her for a lot of things, but there were a lot of, didn't quite hit the mark as far as I'm concerned, but in the argument, but que sera, that is how it is. So programming note, soon-ish, I still have to nail down a date. The 4th installment of Living on Borrowed Crime will be happening soon. Fingers crossed, as soon as I can get it all squared away. Currently scheduled to appear. Well, scheduled in the sense of, agreement to appear when the time comes. Matt Orchard of Matt Orchard Crime and Society and Dave's Lemonade, both of whom you can find on YouTube. Just look up Matt Orchard and Dave's Lemonade, and you can find their channels. Excellent material, excellent content. Can't recommend them more highly. Also, and I'll try to remember to put the link in the description after I'm done here. Be sure to check out Satsu 2 Senses or Chef Tyrone's business, Oshi Fried Chicken. He's got some spiced flour mixes ready for fried chicken, ready to go, ready to ship nationwide or maybe worldwide. I forget now. Now that he's got his whole commercial location situation set up. If you don't know about that little story, holy cow, that's a whole other thing. Beyond that, you can find me here Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern for the Sunday stream, where I'll talk about a thing that I'm interested in on a Sunday, because that's what I do on Sundays. And then, of course, next week at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on Thursday for the next installment of TED Excellence, where I'll look at another off-brand TED Talk, or perhaps a real TED Talk, or a TED Talk that ends up being an off-brand TED Talk in this case. It really all just depends on the day. But as well, I also have a Discord server. And if you're not already a member of the Discord server, I'm going to put a link to the Discord in the chat now. And all you have to do is click that link, find yourself on the landing channel, which is called Say Hello. In addition to saying hello, you have to say the secret word, so that I and my moderators know that you actually watch the show. And today's secret word is sucky. Sucky things suck. Some variant of that. I'll know what you mean when you say it. Sucky things that suck. Okay, it's a passphrase. It's a code phrase this time. Whatever, same difference. But take a look at that when you want to. Thank you, Kiefer Dam, again. Satsu appeared in chat. Oh, did he? Was Satsu here? Satsu. Okay, it's not worldwide yet. Sorry. I played the ad, Satsu, at the top of the show. I played the ad. Oh, heck, you know what? It's my show. That's right. I forgot. I'm not under any strictures or anything. This is my friend Satsu, a.k.a. Chef Tyrone, founder, owner, and CEO of Oshi Fried Chicken, LLC, featuring a new line of seasoned flour mixes. Chef Tyrone's seasoned blends are the perfect gateway to delicious fried chicken or any other protein you might want to use them on. These recipes were painstakingly tested in Tyrone's home kitchen to bring you the fantastic flavors that you and your family can enjoy. The current flavor lineup includes original, spicy, and lemon garlic herb. You can buy individual packs of your favorite flavors or save some money by ordering a variety bundle all through the online store. Go to www.oishifc.com and order today. See, I run this show. I can do whatever I want. I am sick with power. Anyway, everyone, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. Hope you enjoyed the show, found something interesting. Let me know your thoughts on the subject matter in the comments below. Also, if you haven't already, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button on the way out, or if you hated this, hit the dislike button. I appreciate the engagement either way. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the fundraisers pinned to the top of the chat box, thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. With that, everybody, again, thank you for joining me. Hope you all have a good rest of your Thursday. Hope you have a good Friday ahead of you. Hope your weekend is fun and relaxing. I hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.